If you have played Diablo IV, you know her name. She is the main villain, the daughter of hatred, the mother of sanctuary. She commands armies, manipulates angels, and stands at the center of the entire story. But Lilith did not begin in a video game. She is thousands of years older than Diablo, older than Christianity, older than Judaism. She first appeared in the clay tablets of ancient Mesopotamia, more than 4,000 years ago, as one of the most feared and fascinating figures in the ancient world. She was the first wife of Adam, before Eve. She was the woman who refused to be subservient, who walked away from paradise, who chose exile over obedience, and she became the most dangerous female figure in religious mythology. This is the real story of Lilith, and how a 4,000-year-old myth ended up as the villain in one of the biggest video games ever made. Lilith first appears in Sumerian mythology, around 2400 BCE. Her earliest form was as a class of spirits called the Lilitu, wind spirits or night spirits associated with disease, restlessness, and the spaces between the civilized world and the wild. She was not a single character yet. She was a type of being, something that lived in the desert wind and came to you in the darkness. One of the oldest literary references appears in the Epic of Gilgamesh, where a figure identified as Lilith makes her home in a tree that the goddess Inanna is trying to cultivate. She is eventually driven out. Even in this earliest version, the pattern is already established. Lilith is a figure who occupies a space that others want her removed from. She is the uninvited presence, the one who will not leave quietly. In ancient Babylonian texts, she evolved further. She became associated with the night, with dangerous femininity, with the wild places outside city walls where civilization's rules did not apply. She was not a goddess in the way Ishtar or Inanna were goddesses. She was something more unsettling, a force that existed in opposition to the ordered world. But Lilith's most famous and most powerful story comes from a very different source, the Jewish tradition. And it begins in the Garden of Eden. The most famous version of Lilith's story comes from a medieval Jewish text called the Alphabet of Ben Sira, written sometime around the 8th or 9th century. It draws on much older oral traditions, and it tells a story that is radically different from the version most people know. According to this text, God did not create Eve first. He created Lilith. She was made from the same earth as Adam, not from his rib, not from a piece of him, but from the same dust at the same time as an equal. This detail matters enormously. Eve was later created from Adam's body, which was interpreted as making her secondary. But Lilith was created independently. She was, from the very beginning, Adam's equal in every way. And she knew it. When Adam demanded that Lilith be subservient to him, she refused. The text records her argument, "Why should I lie beneath you when I was made from the same earth as you?" She saw no reason to accept a lesser position. She had been created from the same material, by the same God, in the same moment. She was not less, and she would not pretend to be. Adam would not relent. Lilith would not submit. And so she did something that no other figure in the entire biblical tradition had done. She spoke the true name of God, a name of immense and forbidden power, and she flew out of the Garden of Eden on wings. She chose exile. She chose the wilderness. She chose freedom over paradise, solitude over submission. She left Eden of her own will, and she never came back. God sent 3 angels to bring Lilith back. Their names were Senoi, Sansanoi, and Semangelof. They found her by the Red Sea and commanded her to return to Adam and to the garden. If she refused, they warned, 100 of her children would die every day. Lilith refused. She accepted the punishment. 100 of her children every single day in exchange for her freedom. It is one of the most striking moments in religious literature. She was given a clear choice: submit and live in paradise, or remain free and pay an unimaginable price. And she chose freedom. After this, the Jewish tradition transformed Lilith into a figure of fear. She became associated with the deaths of newborn children. Amulets were made with the names of the three angels to protect infants from her. She was blamed for nighttime disturbances, for illness, for seduction, for everything that went wrong in the spaces between safety and the unknown. In the Talmud and in Kabbalistic texts, she evolved further. She became a queen of dark spirits, a figure who wandered the earth seeking revenge on the descendants of Adam and Eve. Some traditions described her as incredibly beautiful. Others described her as monstrous. Most agreed on one thing: she was powerful, she was angry, and she was never going to submit to anyone again. For over 1,000 years, Lilith remained a figure of genuine fear in Jewish folklore. Pregnant women wore amulets inscribed with the names of the three angels who had confronted her. Parents placed charms above cradles. Her name was whispered, never spoken loudly, as if saying it might summon her. In the Zohar, the central text of Jewish mysticism, Lilith became even more powerful. She was described as a queen who ruled alongside Samael, the angel of death. She had her own court, her own army, her own kingdom in the dark places of the world. She was no longer just a runaway wife. She was a sovereign. In Christian tradition, Lilith was never officially canonized in Scripture. She appears only once in the Bible directly, in the book of Isaiah, where the Hebrew word Lilith is used to describe a creature that dwells in the ruins of Edom. Most English translations render it as screech owl or night creature, burying the reference. But the Jewish and Mesopotamian traditions preserved her name and her story. During the Middle Ages and Renaissance, she appeared in art and literature as the ultimate symbol of dangerous, ungovernable femininity. She was the snake in the Garden of Eden in some medieval paintings. She was the seductress who came to men in dreams. She was everything that the patriarchal world could not control, and therefore everything it feared. And then, in the 20th century, something remarkable happened. Lilith's story was reclaimed. In the 1970s and 1980s, feminist scholars and writers looked at Lilith's story and saw something completely different from what centuries of tradition had taught. They did not see a villain. They saw the first woman in history who said no. She was created as Adam's equal. She demanded to be treated as such. When she was denied equality, she left, even though the cost was enormous. She chose autonomy over comfort, independence over submission, her own identity over someone else's approval. The magazine Lilith, founded in 1976, was named after her as a symbol of female independence and strength. She appeared in novels, poems, academic papers, and art as a figure of resistance and empowerment. The same story that had been used for centuries to frighten women into obedience was now being used to inspire them toward freedom. This is what makes Lilith one of the most extraordinary figures in all of mythology. She is not fixed. She is not one thing. She is a mirror, and what you see in her depends entirely on who you are and when you are looking. To the ancient Mesopotamians, she was a wind spirit. To the medieval world, she was a nightmare. To the modern world, she is a symbol of the refusal to be diminished. When Blizzard Entertainment designed the antagonist of Diablo IV, they reached back 4,000 years and pulled Lilith from the oldest texts in human civilization. And they understood her. In the game, Lilith is not a mindless force of destruction. She is a mother, a creator, a being who genuinely believes she is saving her children by freeing them from the control of both heaven and hell. She is terrifying, yes. She is ruthless. But she has a logic to her actions that makes her more than just a boss fight. She has a philosophy, freedom at any cost, even if that cost is suffering. That philosophy comes directly from the ancient myth. The original Lilith made exactly the same choice: freedom over paradise, exile over submission, pain over being diminished. Blizzard's writers took that core idea and built an entire game around it. What if the first rebel was right? What if obedience is the real danger? What if the one they called a villain was the only one willing to set people free? The game does not answer these questions cleanly. It lets you sit with the discomfort. And that is exactly what the original myth has been doing for 4,000 years. Blizzard also drew heavily from her visual tradition: the wings from Mesopotamian art, the horns from medieval depictions, the pale beauty from Renaissance paintings, the maternal ferocity from the Jewish texts. Lilith in Diablo IV is not an invention. She is a composite of every version of Lilith that humanity has ever imagined, rendered in polygons and given a voice. Lilith has survived for 4,000 years. She has outlasted the civilizations that created her. She has been a wind spirit, a night creature, a queen of the underworld, a feminist icon, and a video game villain. She has been feared, worshipped, condemned, and reclaimed. And she endures because her story touches something that never changes: the tension between freedom and safety, between obedience and autonomy, between being who you are told to be and being who you actually are. Every generation finds its own Lilith, because every generation faces the same question she faced in the garden: do you submit, or do you leave? She chose to leave. 4,000 years later, we are still talking about it. If you want more stories like this, watch our video on Lucifer's fall, the other great rebel who chose exile over obedience. And if there is a god, a myth, or a game whose real mythology you want uncovered, drop it in the comments. Subscribe so you don't miss the next tale. We'll see you there.